let's get to our first conversation today. We're definitely looking at growing revenue in the country, and we see Nigeria, a country rich in culture, resources, and entrepreneurial spirit, stands at the cusp of an economic transformation. Driven by digital innovation with a rapidly growing population and an increasingly tech-savvy youth. The time is ripe for Nigeria to harness the full potential of its creative economy. Well, joining us now to discuss, we have Aisha Damu Oji. She's the DG of Center for Black and African Arts and Civilization. Joining me via Zoom. Great to have you on the show. Good morning.
Hello, Mr. Williams. Good morning.
Good morning. I like the way you say
Thanks
Mr. Williams. Yeah, so,
Instead of Laddie, right?
yeah, it's fine. I like it. So, we're in a situation where we're trying to, raise revenue. We're seeing the government there, trying to, get more ideas, at this time. We have a very incredible budget, for 2025. There's also a gap there that needs to be filled, and we need more revenue coming into the country. So talk to me about what you've seen so far, with Nigeria's creative economy and how that's helping boost, revenue for the country.
Well, so far we have a lot of individuals that have been able to boost the economy. We're looking at Nollywood, music, fashion, all these different items have come together to help us boost revenue. I believe there was an expansion from a bit of the data we have from 8.4 trillion to around 10.1 trillion in the last 2023 to 2024. So we're seeing an expansion, but we also have a lot of it that is not recorded, right? So I can give an example of myself. For 20 years, I earned from the creative economy. And we want to see a boost in the creative, cultural, and tourism economy. So if you look at the renewed hope agenda of the president, 8-point plan of the Honorable Minister of Arts, Culture, Tourism, and Creative Economy, it's all targeted towards how do we boost this revenue generation and create jobs. So the difference is clear. From a lot of people, they assume it's just from music, but the trillions have been coming more from the Nollywood and the fashion space. So we're seeing a huge difference so far.
And talking about, the music and the revenue we're seeing from the music, no pun intended, but we're seeing a lot of Lamborghinis, going around with, most of our,
yes, it's been trending
our singers in Nigeria. They're buying Lamborghinis. It's, everyone gets a Lamborghini at this point. But looking at other cultures in Africa now, we see a couple of countries there. They're exporting, their cultural heritage, and that's, a tourism asset, for most of these countries. Do you think Nigeria is, have you seen any improvement, when it comes to, exporting our cultural heritage, or have we put that aside, or is it something that, we're starting to look at?
So I think there's a new renaissance. There's like a new build-up as to the culture. Being Nigeria is cool right now. Being a Nigerian is like cool. You're talking about these Lambos. Yes, we may have some excessive showcasing of wealth. And the beauty of that within the digital space is that it's actually boosting conversations where people are saying, are they taxing these people? What is happening with these monies? All of our money is going outside. So conversations are happening where people are actually thinking about it. And if you look at what the ministry is doing, they're building up initiatives, whether it's Screen Nigeria to showcase Nigeria everywhere with our film. We have a tax credit scheme for the film production to, of course, support people, because that's one of the major problems people in the film production space have been talking about. You look at the Creative Economy Development Fund, which was recently just announced, and that is like to build gaps within the infrastructure space. You also have the Creative and Tourism Infrastructure Corporation, right? All of these things are looking at how to fund the infrastructure, how to build the skills. I think I forgot one, which is the Creative Leap Accelerator Program. For us at CBAC, we have a Pan-African Indigenous Skill Development Program, because the plan is how do we actually export these services to the global community? Ahead of AFCFTA, for example, for those who know about AFCFTA, by the time Africa starts trade across our nations, how do we ensure Nigeria is at the forefront at pushing out these services? You look at the likes of Korea, they were very intentional with K-pop, K-beauty, K-drama. It wasn't something that just came up overnight. So we're seeing success stories globally that we have had organically. So now the government is on board. For the first time, we have a ministry that clearly specifically focuses on that. And I see, especially for someone who was part of the sector, I do have hope that we will grow.
And talking about, hope in growing, at this point. So, what trends have you noticed, when it comes to, say, fashion, movies, cinema, and African art? What trends are you seeing so far when it comes to, exporting all of these to the outside world and getting in that much-needed foreign exchange?
So I think one of the major things is just the same with our resources. The global community see the wealth, the beauty, the creativity. We're different. Nigerians are different. And I think that's one of the reasons we're able to constantly be the ones hyping ourselves in a way. And it gets very annoying for some. But Nigerians are very creative, and the global community are seeing that, and they're coming for our people. So what we need to do is to ensure that we also, as Nigerians, we're using these opportunities to create jobs within this sector, to ensure that the revenue also stays within the Nigerian space, because a lot of people end up having their money on the outside, right? Capital from outside, investments goes back out instead of staying within the sector. So I think one of the major trends is regardless of whatever the sector is, we have investors coming in from the outside, constantly calling to say, okay, we need to come into this space. How do we get in there? How do we get the musicians? How do we get the fashion people? Within the film space alone, fashion has become a big deal, where you now have stylists that are creating for the films. You have stylists that are looking and researching. At CBAC, we have a lot of people coming in to research the kind of videos that we have in our archive. I know that is also happening at the National Film Corporation. You have, for example, NCAC have put together all the commissioners within the state to ensure we actually know what we have. Nigeria has been a country that has thrived without actually knowing 100%. We didn't have the data, but data is building up, and it's really, really exciting. The world is open for us. We just have to be ready to push the right opportunities out there. It's a global world now.
Yeah, it's definitely a global world. And, talking about foreign investors, we've been trying to woo some of these investors, showing that Nigeria is, ready for business. And we've seen the president, do that. So, with some of the foreign investors you've come in contact with, what would you say are some of their concerns, when it comes to, piling cash into the industry?
Well, obviously, sometimes they look at the insecurity situations. Other times they look at the instability of the dollar. They look at what if something happens? Do we have the what's the word to use? Are we able to back them up if anything happens with their money or investments? And I think generally it's always a risk. For most people that have invested, they've made a lot more money than they would anywhere else. And that is where the IP policies come in. That's where the tourism policies come in, because these policies will ensure that everybody across board is making it. So far, it's been the investors enjoying more of it than the talent. So I think now we're also trying to fight to ensure that people who get to have the talent and are doing this are actually earning what they should compared to the rest of the world.
Right. And could you tell us some, success stories you've seen, so far, with some of our exports, going out when it comes to, fashion, movie, African art? Well, what are you seeing?
Yes. So I think right now, if we look at even with our masters in the art scene, our masters, their prices now are being evaluated in millions. We're talking millions of euros, millions of dollars. If you come to fashion, it's the same. Just recently this week, I was on the Tokyo James show, and it has a connection to the Milan fashion show. You have people who are now doing events here and showcasing them globally. You have the likes of the makeup artists that are now selling across Africa. It's not just here. You have people selling on Amazon. We even have our local snacks being sold on Amazon, for example, Bonita, because we have to interconnect. Art isn't just about the painting and the talent. Sometimes our culture is embedded in that. And how do we package these cultures into packageable items for the world to see? So we do have a lot of successful stories, but how do we ensure that we keep them here? I think that is the main question. And that is the work that we are all trying to do within the ministry and the agencies.
Right. Talking about keeping, them here, I've seen a trend, lately with Adire. We're seeing,
yes,
with baggy, you see
yes,
some guys, they wear those baggy pants, with
yes,
some T-shirts. So that's a fashion trend we're seeing so
yes,
far.
It is.
And there's that issue when it comes to fabric production, because most of these fabrics are still, imported. So we're not getting the true value,
yes,
at this point. What's being done to, resurrect our production of the fabric production at this time?
Yes. So, creating these things can be very expensive. So when you have the likes of, for example, China being able to just create a print and print them in thousands to send them down. But what we're seeing now is the trend is that people want authentic. You can see me. I have this. It was made by a young man called Ebuka, and this was made by my sister. So you have people who are now they want the authentic indigenous way of how it was done. And we look at the cotton industry. Now, you see, this is where you have to also connect manufacturing to culture, right? Like I said earlier, you see the cotton industry is gone. It's basically maybe 5% of what it used to be. If we're able to boost that, you see, it's connected still to agriculture. It's still connected to security. So there are many value chain connections that have to be fixed for these things to thrive. But what is beautiful right now is that people are proud to say, I have Akwete fabric, or I'm doing the Adire version, or I'm wearing the authentic Hausa fabric. Now they're incorporating it into the fashion. Even if they are importing stuff, you would still see pieces connecting to the foreign stuff. It's like a mixture of the two sides coming together. So I think by the time we are able to build the infrastructure needed, it would come so easily because the people already exist. There's a community right here in Lagos, Nigeria, Ikate, that they're making handmade fabric. And I visited the place. There are at least 12 countries working out of that space, as in 12 representatives, 12 different countries represented in that place, from Mali to Senegal, Burkina Faso, Benin Republic. Everybody has a piece in what they're doing and teaching in the space. So we need to boost more of that. And Nigerians also need to understand, as you're looking at these external brands and you're spending your money there, it's not going to grow. Ours will never grow. If you would prefer to buy fabric from Louis Vuitton, and then you have a Banker Kuku, for example, here in Nigeria, and nobody's supporting, they're not going to grow. So I think that pride should also come to holding these indigenous ways and say we are very, very proud of it, and we will invest in it and put our own money where our mouth is.
Right. And, it's
be a fashionista, but be a Nigerian and African one.
Yeah. I'm sure everybody wants to, buy Nigeria, at this point.
Yes.
But, it's quite interesting that, some of the indigenous producers here, their prices are even sometimes more expensive than the Louis Vuittons.
Yes, it is.
And they tell you it's because cost of production is high.
Exactly.
And, when we see, some of these textile production outfits that have, gone under now because there's no power. So at the end of the day, it still comes back to infrastructure. So
and our basics.
Yes. So what kind of conversations are you having, with that segment when it comes to providing, the infrastructure needed, when it comes to power?
That is needed.
So that people can actually produce, cheaper. What kind of conversations are you having with that ministry?
Yeah, so it's not just the ministry. Like you have the CBN, Finance, Ministry of Trade, PEBEC. There's so many different aspects to it. We're looking at alternative power supplies. We're looking at hubs where it would reduce the cost of people. I know the minister wants to have hubs in every state in the country so that at least it helps to reduce some of the costs for the people who already have existing products. This should be rolled out hopefully very soon. I'm sure an announcement will come out soon based on that. But so these things are being thought about. But let's remember that this is also a new ministry in the sense, and we're looking at things differently. You actually have people heading the agencies that have been in this sector. So using me as an example, I've been a photographer, a creative artist, a filmmaker. So I'm able to bring insight on how we also suffered back in the day, because things are actually easier for a lot of people now. But looking at all of these things and having interministerial meetings within the Renewed Hope agenda, because it's not just one thing. Almost every sector in this country is affected by any other one failing. So if, for example, customs decides that they're not going to drop a certain amount to import some of the things that these people need, that is an increase in price. If you do not have electricity, that's an increase in price. The people themselves, they don't have health insurance. They don't have a scheme that helps them, deal with day-to-day life. The prices just keep going up. You, as an entrepreneur, if you're hiring people, you're basically taking care of them and their entire family. For those who've been through entrepreneurship in this country, it tends to be that way. So these are all the items that are on the table that we're working hard towards to find solutions. And like I said, gladly, I am having hope because I've been a part of the sector and I'm seeing the difference. People aren't suffering as much as we did. I remember it took me 7.5 years to buy the equipment that I needed to start my photography business. Now it's way easier. Sometimes you even have people throwing these things at you. They say, just bring your talent and come and use our equipment. So things are changing. But we really need to look into obviously boosting the security, the electricity, like I said, basics. Then skill development also, our universities and schools, the school system has to change. We have to meet up to the global community. So you have the ministries, for example, coming up with schools of education that will focus on this more futuristic way of doing things instead of us being stuck to the old school paper type education system. So there's a lot that is happening intergovernment-wise. And the beauty of it is we now have KPIs, the key performance indicators for each ministry that interconnect.
Okay.
And I think for the first time, we have that being done where every quarter people have to send their KPIs and then things are looked at to see, did we achieve or not? That didn't used to happen in the past.
All right, definitely hoping, for the very best, going forward that at some point we actually buy Nigeria, that's true Nigeria with products that are goods that are produced in Nigeria, not imported.
We choose Nigeria.
We choose Nigeria at this point. Thank you so much. That was Aisha Adamu.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
This is the DG Center for Black and African Arts and Civilization. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, I'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll move to the next conversation. What's happening with Nigeria's supply chain? That's in a moment. Just stay with us.